All right, our next guest, he doesn't need an introduction, but we're going to give him one because it's absolutely necessary on this show anyway. Our next guest, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard me speak about him last week. It's calling in all the way from Maryland, Oregon. That's now not Maryland, but Maryland. He's the founder and director of the Life of Learning Institute or Foundation, self-realization author, speaker, and teacher. He teaches inner life classes and also hosts a live call-in radio program on thehealthylife.net. He's the best-selling author of The Secret of Letting Go and 40 other major works. I'm wondering where he gets all the time. And we're going to be talking about Guy's new book, The Secret of Your Immortal Self. For the last 30-so years or so, Guy, this man has been talking and teaching from people from all walks of life how to be more happy, successful, and to have a deeper connection with that divine within. And we're going to be talking about that. That's a big one. His last name is Finley, so he's an Irishman. And it means his last name means Finley, means white warrior, and there's no question this man is quite the spiritual warrior. I'm very honoured to have him on the show. Please welcome, gentlemen, Mr. Guy Finley. Guy, can you hear us?
I can hear you fine, Dermot.
Let me just make sure you're not hearing any music there. All right. Wonderful. Well, welcome to the show, Guy.
Thank you. It's nice to talk to you. Nice to hear your voice.
There's no doubt. Now, what's the? Are you getting any of the Irish weather up there? Because you're up in Oregon, right?
It's a fairly well-kept secret, Dermot, that here where I live, about 60 miles north of the California border, it's a lot like California weather, only we have water.
You're very lucky.
Yeah. I know. I can't believe it when I read what's going on down there, and really Nevada, the whole Southwest. So it's a beautiful place. I live on top of a mountain in a little house, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Ah, beautiful. How long have you been up there now, Guy?
My wife and I moved here from a place called Ojai, California.
Sure, yeah.
In I think it was 94, we moved up here.
Yeah, and Ojai's pretty beautiful too. A little bit expensive though, but it's beautiful.
It is a beautiful area, Dermot, but I was there because at the time I was the co-director of a foundation that was set up by really my mentor, a brilliant, illuminated man named Vernon Howard.
Yeah.
And for about 15 years, I was the West Coast director of the work that was going on there. And when he passed away, it just seemed time for me to get out of town. I never liked. Don't ask me why. I was born and raised there, but California was not, at least Southern California, not my cup of tea.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now it's interesting because before we get into the meat and potatoes of our conversation and talking about the secret of your immortal self, Guy, I wanted to kind of backtrack just for a minute because I found this fascinating when I was doing my homework. You're the son of Larry Finley, who is an amazing, amazing man, talk show host, of course, late night talk show in L.A. And you grew up in a successful, show business, family, celebrities and all that stuff. And in your earlier years, you were a musician and you composed music for Diana Ross, Jackson 5, Debbie Boone, a bunch of those lads and lassies. And you had a pretty, what most people would say, you had a pretty fascinating life and a pretty successful life, I suppose we could call it. But in 1979, you decided to totally, I don't want to say turn your back on it because I don't, but you totally switch your life and you headed off to India. Could you talk a little bit about, because we have this idea of, we want success, we want fame, and we want we want that. And you had all that, and then you did something completely different. Would you talk a little bit what the inspiration behind that change was?
Sure. This is as simple as I know how to put it. I loved music. It was a great passion for me, but even back in those days when my partner and I actually wound up to be the first white soft rock artist ever to sign with Motown, it was an extension of my interior wish, Dermot, to understand. You know, when an artist, basically, what is an artist doing? In whatever form, he's exploring, she's exploring certain impressions they have that are beyond the words. And so they find some ineffable form, something to that will let them manifest what they're feeling and seeing, so that in that work they do, they get another angle, another look at what it is that they're struggling with, what they want to express. And the simplest I can say this, Dermot, is that from the time I was, and I'm not exaggerating, 5 years old, there was a kind of irreconcilable pain in my heart that I first struggled to express through music, but it was always a spiritual pursuit in my lyrics and in melody, and that gradually I realized that the avenue of exploring these irreconcilable differences between what the world said would make me a whole, happy, successful human being, and the fact of my experience after arriving at that so-called point. I didn't know what else to do, but it was clear that the path that I was on, as rich as it was in terms of worldly things, you know, I had a pad in Malibu with horses, a tennis court, the whole 9 yards. It did not answer the question I had. Why is there so much fear? Why is there pain in spite of all of these things? So, in one respect, everything that I was going through in those days didn't reconcile the difference. It exacerbated it, so that I had to find out. And I would love to say that there was some brave white warrior.
Did I get that correct now? White warrior?
Yeah.
Finley, yeah.
You know, I'd love to tell you that, but it wasn't. It was a man groping in the darkness, but understanding what wasn't light. Yeah. And what wasn't light was the life that I had, and the understanding that it wouldn't lead to the kind of illumination that I was looking for at that time. So I did. I quit. I just walked away.
Wow.
Traveled, hoped to find a man or a woman somewhere who, in those days, the idea was you get hit on the head with a peacock feather,
right.
And suddenly, you appears and you're illuminated.
It's all good. It's all good
exactly.
Again.
You know.
Now,
like
when you went to India, did you because you went in what 1980 was it to India?
Yeah.
And you didn't hook up with well, I suppose Ram Dass and those lads. They were more late 60s, early 70s, right? They were going to see. Oh gosh, what's his name now?
Well, let's suffice to say that I sat for some time at the feet of a number of respected teachers of the time, some of which were more disappointing than I could ever put words to in person, and then by a wonderful encounter that I still don't understand. When I was getting ready to walk into one of these ashrams, a sadhu walked up. This is the God's honest truth. Man with a cloth around his genitals and white powder all over his body, with a flute under his arm. He grabbed me and pulled me away from this place, and in perfect English said, as he pointed into the teacher, "Honey on the tongue, poison in the heart." Wow. And it was he who I spent maybe 10 days with at that point.
Yeah.
Learning things that I wouldn't have learned otherwise.
Wow. And then you came back to the States and you found your teacher, Vernon Howard,
yes.
In the States. How did that happen? Did a book fall on your head, or?
No, you know what? I can tell you and I have the gift of the gab here. We could just go on. Simply put, I had been working at the time when I came back with an Indian fellow, an Indian teacher, helping him to set up meetings. And when I came back, I knew I couldn't do that anymore, that it was dead end for me. And as I was leaving that very night, after telling him that I had to take another path, a man who had been in those meetings came running out and said, "You got to go hear this guy, Vernon Howard." And so I was no more interested in hearing another teacher, let alone a man with a name like Vernon Howard. You know,
Vernon, yeah,
it just didn't ring.
It doesn't
he gave
command
me a piece
attention.
Of paper.
Yeah.
I threw it away. Next morning, I woke up, Dermot, God is my witness, and I got in my car and I drove to the general area where I remember he said he was going to be. Drove around for 30 minutes. Finally, found a place with a lot of cars, and went in, and there was VH.
Wow.
And that was a journey that took 15 years after that.
Well, you studied with him for about 15 years, and then you created the Life of Learning Foundation.
Yes, after Mr. Howard passed away.
Yeah, in Maryland, Oregon, and you teach a lot of different classes there. And yeah, I don't know where you find the time, Guy. You've written is it 40 books? Would that be right?
40 books and audio albums. Yeah, actually a little bit more than that.
Yeah. That's incredible. We'll talk about that. So let's talk about your book today. Now, I have to say, Guy, my girlfriend and I, we sat in bed every night with a cup of tea. It was non-caffeinated. I only do caffeinated in the morning, but and we sat and we read your book, The Secret of the Immortal Self, and we really loved it. There was quite a few things. I mean, we could have 10 shows on the book, Guy, because I found that a lot of the essays, I love your use of stories, Guy. You're definitely, no question about it, you have the gift of the gab, no question about it. And you use that very poetically in the book, and I'm sure, I've seen a lot of your talks too, and you definitely, you use story there too, and I'm sure Joseph Campbell would be very proud of you. Let's talk a little bit about the book. First of all, I'd love to get your how I always ask people this question before I kind of get into our things, but there's so much, we're looking for so much in the world, and it's really beautiful that you're able to share that, hey, you were successful and those things really didn't fulfill you, and then you went on a spiritual path. But we tend to look at the world like, there's a lot of negativity, there's a lot of nonsense, there's a lot of, environments, emotionally, physically, spiritually, we're on drugs, we're doing this, we're, 50% or 70% of us are on some type of antidepressants. When you look at the world, Guy, what do you see?
Well, first, so you know, anything goes, Dermot, any subject, any direction. So no holds barred there. What do I see? Simply put, I see a world that has reached such a point of dysfunction that it is almost at a complete stymie. And as the stymie grows, so grows the desperation for some way to reconcile it. And as desperation grows, so does the abuse of oneself, of one's powers, and a general malaise and a darkness spreads. But, and this is something that cannot be spoken about enough, it is the very onset of this wave of darkness, of this violence, of this disparity in classes between individuals, the violence. It is that very darkness that begins to finally show itself as being the fruit of a path that doesn't work. And when we begin to realize that we are inwardly, psychologically, spiritually even, religiously, economically, taking a path that doesn't work, the negation factor comes in. So it isn't so much that one is quick to find a new way to heal oneself or to make things right, as much as one becomes cognizant of an order of our own being that has brought us to this terrible place. So there is something quite illuminating in that darkness if we can understand that the revelations that this world is now making apparent due to what we call reality is a guiding light if we can recognize it as being such. So it always appears in two ways at once, Dermot. Same with our interior life. The revelation is an opportunity for an integration, for changing ourselves if we can use it properly.
Are you hopeful, Guy, that we can turn this around, that we can take a lot more time to invest inwardly and in ourselves, as opposed to, trying to grapple and trying to get from the world. Are you hopeful that we can turn this around?
Dermot, it's kind of a tricky question.
It is a tricky question, I know, Guy.
I don't have hope in this consciousness that has betrayed itself and ourselves. But I do hold an endless hope. In fact, it's more than a hope. I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that what is good and true and loving always prevails. I know that. It's not a question to me. So accordingly, for those individuals who are beginning to wake up a little bit and to see where we have been literally the blind leading the blind, by the very dawning of that new vision within ourselves about the truth of ourselves, something very good is born. And for those individuals and eventually the world itself, what is good will triumph. Because what is not working, what is incomplete, what is in the dark, must be revealed, and it will. That's actually scriptural. But the fact remains that I have great hope in what is heavenly and true. Not in the sense of a time to come, but in the sense of its inevitable victory over what is dark.
Hmm. And where would you say your book comes in, and your book talks a lot about this, Guy, in terms of the solution of connecting more with the divine within, or connecting with the immortal self. Share a little bit about what is the immortal self, Guy, and how do we connect to it or contact it?
I think the simplest example would be to draw you into the conversation as an advocate for the listener. How many times would you say, Dermot, in your life there's been a crisis of some kind or another?
Well, let me see. I'm 46, so times that every day of my life, pretty much, Guy. I couldn't I couldn't tell you when I didn't have some nonsense on my mind that was.
Surely he tells the truth.
Yeah, I may not be alone, and I might.
All right, so look, that's a beautiful thing. That's one thing. I call a crisis in life a close encounter of the truthful kind.
Oh, I like that. Good one.
Because at some point, when the lesson rides in on the back of an event, and that's how lessons come. At some point, life literally says, Dermot, hey, Guy, you know that image you've got of yourself? You know that belief or attachment, that dependency that's come with you through these 20, 30, 40, 50 years? Well, it's time for you to actually understand that it doesn't serve you anymore. And the way I'm going to prove that to you, says life, says the divine, is I'm going to bring around a series of lessons through events that prove to you that what you say is valuable isn't valuable anymore. Now, when these lessons ride in on the back of events, most of us, the first thing we do, especially the first 50 times.
50,000 times, you mean, Guy?
Huh?
50,000 times, you mean?
Yeah, pick yourself up off the floor somewhere.
Yeah.
The first few times you say, look, it's his fault, or it wasn't that bad, or I've learned my lesson. And then you don't. And then gradually, point being, you reach a moment where you realize that what life is trying to show you, it is not trying to take something away from you. It's trying to open you up to a moment where you realize that something in you already knew the answer to this crisis. It's just that another part of you was blocking it. And when we go through a crisis like that successfully and come out on the other side of it, a different order of human being that went into it, we realize that higher order of ourself, that better, brighter wisdom, that understanding, it was always there. Is that not true?
Gosh, well, you bring up a good point too, Guy, because you're talking about resistance. You're talking about, because these things show up all the time, but the first thing that I say to them is, here we go again.
Yeah.
And I the hand comes out or whatever, and I resist. And in your book you talk about, what you resist persists, and what you what was it? Not what you something grows. Oh, I forget. But basically, you were talking about resistance. I'll read a little passage in the book here that really stood out to me because this is what happens. Life shows up, and then we say, no, I don't want that. And we go where the grass is greener. Of course, the grass is never greener. You say resistance, not wanting something, anything, is a secret form of identifying with what is unwanted. This is why the more we struggle with not wanting, the stronger our attraction grows to what we don't want. Just ask anyone who tries to diet, give up smoking, or stay sober. Why is it when life shows up, Guy, that the first thing we say is, no, I don't want that, I want something else, and yet we keep perpetuating the same thing?
All right. Two things. First, to clean up the last thing I said, the proof after we go through the crisis that there is something immortal, something timeless in us, is that on the other side of the crisis, we remember that we never had to have done what we did, and that we don't have to do it again because our new understanding was waiting for us in our own consciousness. The consciousness this new understanding is waiting for us in is already a part of us. We're asleep to it. It is immortal. Wisdom is immortal. Love is immortal. Compassion is immortal. We have these constituent parts latent in us. Remembering that they are there and daring to act upon the remembrance in the right moment is the key. Now to the question about resistance. It is not you, Dermot, it is not I who resists. It is a part of our present nature that does not know who or what it is without something to be against. It is, in a manner of speaking, an old man, an old woman, an old nature that has been formulated over time through repetitive experience until it finally has become established as an identity. That identity is an unconscious nature, and it does not want to become conscious because in order to be made conscious, it has to give itself up.
Right.
That's the meaning of true sacrifice, of dying to oneself. Only what you are dying to, what is being sacrificed, is the old man, is this old nature. So when an event comes that challenges the image that we are identified with, threatens our very sense of self, this old nature says, no, 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 and it would rather find something to blame or hate than to see that that very moment has come to release you from it. The word no, listeners, if you want to get one thing from Dermot, from our conversation, anytime you feel no towards an unwanted moment, you have killed every possibility that moment brought with it for you to exit that moment a different order of human being.
And so how would a person then, Guy, when that moment shows up, let's say emotionally it shows up or mentally,
right?
What is the conversation then that we need to have with ourselves in order to connect to the truth behind that nonsense that's showing up, or that lesson that's showing up, I should say?
Well, again, we need new knowledge, see. This is what my new book really serves to do. It is a book about helping the reader remember things that he or she already has latent in their own consciousness. When we go outside on a given day, like I'm up here in southern Oregon, I'm looking at a kind of an overcast, cloudy day, but there's turkeys and squirrels and all kinds of creatures about 50 feet from me having a good old time.
Are they all looking at you, Guy? Like, oh, there's that guy again.
I do get deer, Dermot. Honestly, with God, they come to my window here 4 feet from me and stare at me until I get up and bring them some food.
I don't know where I heard it or read it. You were talking about the jayhawk that used to come and tap at your window there until you fed him. You were talking about, getting the divine's attention. And I had to laugh.
Heckle and Jekyll, yeah.
Yeah, I had to laugh because I have the same thing going on at our house. I'm an awful fool for the birds and the squirrels guy. I mean, you're talking to like the master bird feeder. And I started feeding the birds here about... we moved into the house about a year ago, and I just started putting out little bits of things, little crumbs, scraps, whatever, and one or two birds would show up. Now it's gone from that to I have my bag of pure bred, organic, wild finch food, and it goes out on a line every morning. Like I won't mention what the line is, but in the olden days, and put a line out for the birds, and away they come, and they'll sit there and look at me in the morning at 7 o'clock. They must have a clock or something until I feed them, Guy, and that to me is persistence. So how do we get persistent, Guy, about this spiritual path? How do we get the divine's attention? I mean, I've screamed at God a few times, and I've never gotten anything. So how is there a how behind the how we do it?
Well, in a way. So why are you drawn to looking at those birds that come to the feeder? What is it about them?
Oh, gosh. They make me happy. I just look.
Okay, all right. So let's just take that. My relationship with those moments, because I'm sitting here and having breakfast. I get up. I'm thinking about whatever the heck I'm thinking about. Maybe I'm a little worried or nervous, or something's going on with a friend or a family member. And then I walk over, and then there's the birds. There's the deer, and suddenly, because of that moment of relationship, I'm transported into another part of myself where, because of the relationship, it awakens in me in that moment some corresponding character that I love. Birds make me happy. The deer, watching them run brings joy, Watching a baby be licked by its mama it makes you feel a gentleness. So the relationship with the moment is a revelation of a certain character within us that prior to that moment and the impression, we don't know lives within us. Can you see that with me?
Gosh, yeah, that's a beautiful point.
That also means that those moments of tenderness, of joy, happiness, harmony, that they were always there, but that we were asleep to them until the relationship awakened that part of us. We love that idea because we can see that when we see something, a vast view, a timeless sky, we feel the timelessness of it and are powerfully moved to want to spend more time having that part of our consciousness stirred into an awakened state. So that's a bit of true knowledge. Now, hang on to your socks there, Dermot.
I will.
If that's true, that the moment of that relationship serves as a revelation to what is timeless and already present in me for the purpose of integrating my consciousness, why wouldn't the exact same truth hold when someone says something I don't like? When I get the news from the doctor? When something untoward torments me? Why wouldn't I realize in that same moment that life has come, a relationship it has established, a revelation takes place of a character, of a quality that I did not know was in me until that moment, and that has been revealed by that moment for the purpose of me becoming aware enough of it to integrate what has been unconscious into what can be conscious and become a new man.
I'm going to listen to that quite a few times, Guy. You know what I'm hearing in that, in terms of the quality, Guy, is that you're saying then that these qualities already exist in us. that we're running after, everything under the sun to fulfill that. And that's why, stats or whatever, I won't get into them, but it's like America is like 5% of the population, and we're using up like 70 or 80% of the resources.
That's right.
And it's not just America.
But Dermot, it's not just running after these things, man. It's also, and it can't be separated from it, running away from these things.
Yeah, if we're running towards something, we're running away from something else.
Look, why would anyone sell his soul or her soul for the approval of another human being unless that same man or woman believed from the inside out, without knowing it, that unless I have that approval, I must be no one? So I run towards those things that I believe will garner the approval of the world around me, because I don't know that I'm being guided from within by a fear of a part of myself that I've never met, but that I let tell me who I am. This is where the warrior part comes in, where one begins to realize, once they have the knowledge that we're sharing, that I am as moved to seek strength as I am afraid of my own weakness. Strength doesn't look for strength. Compassion doesn't go looking for ways to prove itself. So understanding that we live in a world within ourselves that we are asleep to, and then daring to be awake enough to realize that that moment that just showed me that violence in myself, it didn't cause violence. It revealed a nature whose tendency is violence, in order to keep me from ever being aware of it sufficiently enough to begin to give it up, to die to it, because it's worthless.
Why, Guy, are we so unwilling to give up those parts of ourselves?
We don't know any better. We are a deeply conditioned race of beings, Dermot. It's what it means when they talk in the East or West. Christ said, "Won't you watch with me? Wake up, East and West, polish the mirror, pull back the veils." All the attributions are the same. It's about a man or a woman finally realizing that you cannot run away from your pain. You take it with you, regardless how pleasurable any given moment may be, because of what you've acquired to possess. And so we are afraid of this pain because we've never met the nature that produces it. But to meet the nature that produces the pain, and what's the pain other than resistance? To meet that nature is the same as recognizing it has no authority whatsoever, save for what we have given it to it in the darkness of ourself.
So when we meet that pain, Guy, are you saying that just the very act of being willing to meet it, we transform it, or is there something else that needs to take place?
No, yeah, that's spot on, man. Look, let's take an example. Maybe I'm a man or a woman who is I'm enabling something in someone else or in myself. I'm enabling a violent partner. I'm enabling an addiction. Whether I do it with someone or someone else makes no difference. The fact is, the reason that we enable what we do is because when the time comes to stop enabling, the pain, the pressure, the push is so great that we cave into it, because that pain tells us if we don't do what it is prescribing to keep ourselves safe, at least in something that we know what's going to happen, then something terrible is going to happen to us. And an addict...
So true.
Huh?
It's so true.
Right? But finally, one day, we hit the bottom.
That's right. Yeah.
Which ultimately is the top of a new beginning. And the bottom is, you know what? I guess I'm just going to have to die, because this thing is a slow death, and let's get it over with.
And some of us like to bounce around on the bottom for a while, too, Guy. I've done that a few times. All right, Guy, hold that thought. I'm going to do a quick little station ID, and I'll be right back. I want to talk to you now. We're kind of. I feel like we're heading into a little bit of kind of a relationship talk, maybe. And you had a beautiful essay about growing into a love that lasts. So, as men, we like to, we like to talk about relationships, and we always, of course, the most of us want to be a little bit better in our relations, a little more loving to the missus, and so on and so on. So I'll be right back. We're going to talk about that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you just joined us, welcome. You're listening to KOWS LP 107.3 FM in Occidental, California, community radio for West Sonoma County. And, of course, we are streaming on the World Wide Web for all you planetary, interplanetary, and external out-of-planetary beings at KOWS.FM. F for Frank and M for Matilda. That's after my sheep that lives next door. We're talking with Guy Finley, the Celtic Coach radio show, talk show just for men. We're talking with Guy Finley, author, speaker, white warrior, and just all around, I would say, Guy, we're going to give you the Manly Man Award because for this week anyway, because you're one of those individuals that has found a way to be able to face the nonsense, to face the fear, and to be able to turn it around and start sharing that with others. One of the things, Guy, I really loved in your book, and when I listen to you talk, I think to myself, where the hell does this guy get this stuff from? Because you seem to have an intimate knowledge when you're speaking of the way the mind works and how our thoughts are just creating this crazy reality. One of the things that myself, anyway, and I'm sure a few other men, 2 or 3 out there, struggle with is relationships. And in your book, The Secret of Your Immortal Self by Guy Finley, we talk about growing into a love that lasts. And you have a beautiful essay here. I'm just going to read a little bit, and maybe you could share a bit more on this, Guy, because this really hit me. Don't try to please each other, for each of you has constantly changing pleasures. That's so true. Instead, strive to please love. And in this you will please what is capable of being loved in one another. This understanding alone nourishes your life, and in turn, love will nourish your life together. Teach and help each other to be independent. Now, Guy, I can tell from experience that I've been in more relationships than one that have been exactly that, enabling. If I do this, she's going to be happy. If she does that, I'm going to be happy. If she wears that, if she looks this way, I'm going to be happy. If she doesn't look that way, she starts putting on a few pounds. She starts doing this. I'm happy, I'm out the door, yada, yada, yada. The list goes on and on and on. And share a little bit about what I just read there, Guy, and its meaning for us as men in relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll start by saying it's time to man up.
Did you hear that, gentlemen?
Yeah,
Guy Finley just told you to man up.
It's time to man up. Dermot, the only reason, and God willing, that all of us should see this more and more clearly. The only reason that a part of our mind and heart leaps up to blame another person, to blame a moment, is because the pain of that relationship is too great to do anything other than let it out. But the pain in the relationship is not produced by the person. The person, the relationship, serves to reveal a part of ourselves that is wrongly dependent, that is desperate to be approved of, that cannot know itself unless it receives exactly the approval it pursues. And so, as I said earlier, the condition doesn't create the conflict. It reveals a part of ourselves that's latent and waiting to express itself. So when I say man up, there is no greater waste of a man's energy than to blame someone else for his pain. The pain is not the product of the event. The event reveals his potential to feel that kind of pain because of his dependency upon something false. To be true means to start dying to what is false, and to die to what is false, we must bear how it hides itself by producing this pain that pushes us to blame others.
So let's take that into a kind of a practical application and a personal one for me, Guy. For instance, now because I want to make this a little more real, the point that you're making here, because it's a very, very valid one and very relevant to men in relationships, at least for myself. My girlfriend, I'm very tidy, and I like to have I like to have everything in the fridge and on the books and everything. I like to have everything tidy and in order. And when it's not in order, there's times that I get very peeved about it. And of course, I point the finger at the girlfriend and I say, hey, why are all the books on the ground and that's not what they're supposed to be. So what would be the lesson? Like, how could I look at that guy and say, as you're talking about, there's a gift, there's a lesson in everything, negative or positive. Sure. So how would I look at that and find a gift so that I'm not constantly resisting that? Because it's a big one for me. I'll be honest.
Oh no! Look. We're not making light of this stuff. My God, But again, let's start a couple different ways. Number one, can I get negative towards another human being for what they do, unless within myself somewhere there is some demand that they don't do what they just did?
There's absolutely.
So is the person's behavior the problem, or is it my demand?
My demand.
All right. Now, does that mean that the person should be a pig? Does that mean that the person should, always walk on eggshells around me?
Right.
The answer is no. So somewhere between the fact that within this unconscious nature, waiting to be revealed, if we're lucky, is a certain set of unconscious demands that have been created over a certain amount of time. And, of course, nothing in us that makes a demand on another person doesn't believe that it's God's gift to humanity. If only you could be as clean as I am. So, number one, demands within us produce conflict with others who don't recognize how right we are. Now, wait, this is getting better. Number two, when I'm angry at someone because they are not keeping the place neat, or because they happen to cut me off, so they don't understand the proper order of traffic, is my interior state in that moment, Dermot, is it an orderly state?
Absolutely not.
I mean, if I'm negative, I'm out of order, man.
That's right, yeah.
And yet, this out-of-order state is finding and judging someone else for not being as orderly as it is.
Gosh, good point.
I mean, what a joke.
Yeah, it is kind of a joke.
It is a joke. But now, the important thing, I have a saying, like you said, I talk here in Southern Oregon to a group of men and women 3 or 4 times a week. And by the way, everyone's invited to come up. There's nothing to join. It's a $3 donation at the door, and if you don't have the $3, you're not turned away. That's it.
Nice.
And one of the things that we talk about to kind of encapsulate what we've just been describing is this. When someone or something does what you don't like, learn how to say in that moment, if you want to change, that is, learn how to say, thank you, I didn't know that about myself.
And then you don't ask, so I wouldn't be asking my girlfriend then to...
No, you would. But you see, the first order of business would be to accept the revelation that the anger you're feeling isn't because the room isn't neat. So we learn to separate what is practical from what is spiritual.
Oh, okay. There's the definition, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do what is in our power, Dermot. We don't do what is not. It's not in your power to change your girlfriend's nature.
Yeah, I've tried.
But
it doesn't work.
But it is in your power to explain to her as many times as it takes that this isn't working. And here's what happens. Yes or no, everybody? The person does the thing and we try to be spiritual. We don't say anything. They do it again. Yeah. We try to be spiritual. Finally, about the 9th time, we just come unglued.
That's right. We erupt.
Yeah. See, we don't want to be the instrument of an eruption. And what erupts is that which resists, believing that if it can just swallow it long enough, you'll get through it. It's swallowing it so that it has stuff to spew up later.
Taking a minute to let that one settle in, Guy.
I'm with you.
So now to get clarity on this for myself, Guy, because I'm a bit slow at times, differentiating the practical from the spiritual. Practical right. Being, okay, it's, let's put these up on a shelf so they look nice and whatever. And the spiritual being, what's the lesson that it's, what is this calling forth in me? What is it showing me?
Yes.
Would that be it?
Yeah, look, right out of Scripture. He prepareth a feast in the presence of mine enemies. Love thine enemies. This is what Christ was talking about. He was no namby-pamby. That was no soft shoe. He was the warrior. He was saying that you are going to do what you have to do. But I am going to use the part of you that is asleep and doing these unconscionable things, these activities that I don't agree with, whatever that may be at whatever level. I'm going to use that to reveal in me exactly what needs to be seen so that I am free of this part of myself that wants to punish you for being what you are. And by the way, if I stop punishing the person who sets me off, that person will actually see that I have changed, and instead of resisting me punishing them, which makes them want to do the thing I don't want them to do, they will recognize it's possible for them to change, and they will want to because they will see you sacrificing yourself for the sake of love.
We, Guy, in the world, and I speak for myself too, we spend a lot of time trying to control all the outside circumstances, and I talking about resistance and in relationships, I've heard it said many times from different speakers, relationships is the greatest spiritual teacher there is because you're in such close proximity that you can't get away, Gosh, I've totally... What the heck was I going to talk about now? I've totally... oh, yes. I heard you talk about... it was very funny. You says, do you guys want to hear some good news? And everyone's like, yes. And then you turned to the audience and said, well, does anyone have any? And then you were talking about... I thought it was beautiful. You were... you were talking about how we try to prepare ourselves for life.
Yeah.
And would you take it from there? Because you said something to the effect of, you can't prepare yourself for life, which to me means, trying to control everything in your life. It's not going to work. Even though, I know it's not going to work, I still bloody do it, Talk a little bit about that, Guy. Set us straight on that, would you?
Yeah, well, again, this is one of those things where we do what's in our power. We refuse to do what's not. I'm a householder. I've got a wife. If I have kids, I've got a girlfriend. I have to make enough money to pay my bills. Buy gas. buy good organic food if that's how. That's a householder's life. But that's what it means to be practical. It isn't practical, is it, if I'm punishing myself because I didn't make enough money this week to buy organic food? I mean, that's insane if you think about it. I hate my life, which means inwardly I'm destroying myself because I don't have enough money to buy healthy food.
Well, you put it like that.
well, how else could you put it, Dermot?
Oh, God, yeah. Painfully true.
See, that's this interior division within us where we don't understand that there is no such thing as a moment, literally, this is my definition of a fearless life. There's no such thing as a moment that doesn't come to help you. We all know the idea, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Well, why would what my wife is doing not be the teacher in the moment? She's the instrument of an intelligence that has brought us together at a specific point in time in order to bring a lesson that reveals where it is that I'm still identified with, some part of me that would rather prove itself right and punish whoever it has to do that for, than discover that negativity and hatred can never be right, regardless how seemingly valid it is. So we have to learn to recognize that. This is the interior work. Understanding every moment is presenting an opportunity for something to be revealed in us that we don't know. And then to meet that moment with a willingness to stay, I call it learning to be watchful instead of willful.
Now, let me ask you this, Guy. When that moment shows up, I've often found myself saying, oh, what's the lesson here? Trying to be spiritual. What's the lesson here there, big divine Dermot? And, I get back, you need to let go. And so I say, oh, okay, all right, thanks for that lesson. And, I inwardly say to myself, I'm letting go now. And then, the next day, I'm letting go. How do we may get the lesson, Guy, but how do we then take the charge off that?
Dermot, you're not getting the lesson. You're getting the crib notes. What does that mean?
That was my next question.
You cannot learn the lesson by thinking about it.
You cannot learn the lesson by thinking about it.
When we think about a moment, are we in the moment we're thinking about?
No, we're thinking about the moment.
And the moment we're thinking about it is something our mind made up for us to be able to think about it. So the mind divides itself up.
Yeah.
First, there was this event, and it created this reaction. Now my mind tries to get all that into some form it can think about. And the form that it thinks about is not the moment. It is something that it actually created in its own image. So, if we really want to learn the lesson, we have to stand in the moment of the revelation itself, not think about it.
And possibly multiple times, Guy?
Look, real change, you asked me about it, do I have hope for the world? Quantum physics, I'm not much of a science guy, but I know enough about this to say it. If there is darkness, in fact, you know what, this pretty big news, they actually just proved the entanglement theory. I won't get into it, but they just proved that nothing is separate.
Right.
That if you affect a certain state of energy in one atom, that same atom will be affected no matter how far away it is, no matter the time difference, nothing. This beautiful theory.
Yeah.
That means that anything that we see, that any form of darkness, it is the same darkness everywhere. Any kind of darkness, whether it's in my heart or in some distant corner of the universe, It's all the same dark matter. Light anywhere, even the littlest in my heart, or the greatest sun that was ever created, is the same light. If we bring a little light into that darkness is changed everywhere, in everything and in everyone. So when we are willing in the moment where we want to blame, to do that's an exercise I call stop, drop, and endure. I come to a stop. Why? Because I remember what I heard. Man up. I realize that now I can feel all this pressure. I want to let it out. I want to blame somebody. And I catch the thoughts and feelings that are trying to justify it. I drop them. Why? Because I understand they're part of the problem, not the solution. And then the big part, the last one, endure. This is where the sacrifice is made. This is where I am willing in that very moment to remain in the awareness of this part of myself that the event has awakened, and allow that intelligence, that awareness, to act upon and within what it has revealed. That transfigures that unconscious state, Dermot. It actually changes it. Anything that we are aware of, by the nature of our awareness, is changed by the nature that is aware of it. So then that darkness is changed. And by the way, when this happens, you know it. You may repeat some of the behaviors. This is not this isn't drive through McDonald's and get fixed.
Yeah, life is a process, not a...
Yeah, but it is definite, it is true, and it is infallible. And the minute that a man even begins to suspect that possibility of 1% light into what was fully dark in him, that, by the way, he called the light. That's out of the Scripture, too. The light dwells in the darkness, and the darkness comprehends it not. That one little change changes everything, and everyone, and just I'll throw it in all times, past, present, and future.
That's beautiful, Guy. That would be a beautiful way, I think, to wrap up our show. We know we have about 4 minutes here, Guy, so I wanted to just throw out 3 little questions we like to ask our guests, and I also wanted to give you a few minutes just to talk about. Let's do that first. So, The Secret of Your Immortal Self, Guy Finley. Where can we pick up the book, Guy?
Well, any store locally, if they don't have it, they can get it. It's good to support your local stores. The big online retailers all have it. But if you want, my foundation has put together a very special offer where you get the book for just about the same you'd get as any of the online retailers, and 5 gifts, including a never-before-released audio album, some MP3 downloads, a book, an MP3 book, really a wonderful package of supporting material. And to do that, you would go to yourimmortalself.com, www.yourimmortalself, all one word, .com. If you don't want the book, you can go to guyfinley.org, GUYFINLEY, guyfinley.org, and you can spend years going through my foundation's website, listening, reading, all kinds of wonderful things there, guyfinley.org. So that's it. And also I would say, because you're not all that far away, coming in June, we have the Talks in the Pines here, 3 days or 5 days. And Dermot, I'm extending a personal invitation to you.
Oh, thank you, Guy.
I don't know if you can swing it, but
we were talking about it, and I have to say, Guy, that the price that for that is like nothing.
No, it is like nothing. We try to be as inexpensive as possible, but I would also tell you that if you come up, you would be my guest for that. Yeah. So you could waive that too, Dermot. It'd be great to have you come up.
I'd like that. I'll bring a cup of tea, Guy. So now, Guy, Your Immortal Self, we can get that at yourimmortalself.com. Is that correct? and then we have guyfinley.org, and that's all the information about the about your learning foundation. Is there any other websites or information, Guy, that you'd like to share?
Well, there's a bunch of stuff, but I don't want to confuse people. I have a virtual online school, a wisdom school. You can learn about that at the .org site.
What's the name of the school?
In fact, you get a month free subscription to that wisdom school, which is cheap to begin with. If you go to yourimmortalself.com, when you get the book, you get the trial subscription to the school. And I also offer that to you too, Dermot.
Beautiful. Thank you. Guy,
I wouldn't know what else to say about those things.
Yeah. No, I think that's plenty of stuff to keep them busy, so they're not thinking about all the other nonsense as wasting their time. Keep your eyes on the. I heard a great teacher one time say, somebody says to him, how are you so happy and how are you so just rich with life? And he says, I kept my eyes on my own plate.
Yep, that's right.
All right, Guy, we have 3 little questions, and then we're going to let you go just to honour your time. Now, I don't know, maybe someone like yourself may not even answer this question, Guy, but what makes you sad?
My golf game.
Very nice. What makes you happy?
Honestly, Dermot, anything that comes along that would try to elicit from me sadness is met by a part of me that knows that very moment is intended to release me from the attachment that always produces whatever makes one sad. You can't separate sadness from demands. It's impossible.
And let's say, Guy, third question, you were going to buy a new cap. A nice cap, by the way, and that you're wearing now, a new Irish cap. And on the Irish cap, you wanted the lad who was creating it, you wanted him to embroider on there the purpose and meaning of life. What would you put on the cap, Guy? And take your time.
Remember, there's always something higher.
Remember, there's always something higher.
That'd be it.
Beautiful. Guy, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the... I could talk to you all day on the show today. And I'd like to extend the invitation to come back and chat with us again, Guy, sometime in the near future.
Let's do it, for sure.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we'll be having that cup of tea up in Maryland at the foundation. I'm already working on it with the missus.
I'd sure like that, Dermot.
Wonderful. Guy, all the best to you and many, many blessings to you and the best of luck. And thank you also from the man here and the men out there for the work that you're doing. Much appreciated.
So be it.
Cheers, Guy. All the best.
Bye now.
Bye now.